"She's stealing from you," the little girl told the millionaire, but when they checked the accounts, they discovered something terrible. Comment telling me what you thought of this story with a rating from 0 to 10 and let me know what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story, and I want to get to know you better. So subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The winter sun in Charlotte was setting slowly over the city's most luxurious residential complex when Ethan Hayes, 45, parked his black BMW in the garage of his penthouse apartment. A real estate executive known for his rigidity and extreme distrust, he carried on his back the weight of 8 years building a business empire after losing everything he loved in a single, tragic night. His hands trembled slightly as he turned off the engine. Another day of tense meetings, multi-million-dollar contracts, and the constant feeling that everyone around him had ulterior motives. Ethan had learned the hard way that trusting people was a luxury he couldn't afford. As he stepped out of the elevator on the 12th floor, he noticed something unusual. Small, dirty footprints marked the immaculate marble floor of the hallway. He frowned, annoyed by the building's security breach. How had a child managed to get in here? The answer came when he opened his front door. Sitting on the cold floor of the balcony, a girl of about 4 years old watched him with enormous, frightened eyes. She was dirty, with torn clothes, and clearly hungry. Her brown hair was tangled, and there were dried tears on her small face. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" Ethan asked, his voice laden with suspicion and impatience. The girl didn't answer immediately. She remained motionless, like a scared little animal ready to flee, but then, with a courage that surprised even herself, she stood up and walked over to Ethan. Her small hands pulled at the sleeve of the businessman's expensive suit. "Sir," she whispered in a weak but determined voice, "the lady who cleans your house is taking your money." Ethan felt as if he had been punched in the gut. Maria Sanchez, his trusted cleaning lady for 8 long years, was one of the few people in whom he still placed any faith. A 38-year-old single mother, always punctual, honest, and dedicated. Or so he believed. "What are you talking about?" he asked, squatting down to be at the child's level. "I saw her counting a lot of money in the little room, where she keeps her cleaning supplies. She was crying and talking to herself about a sick girl," the little one explained, her big eyes fixed on Ethan's face. The world around Ethan seemed to collapse once more. Maria had always been his anchor of stability, the only person who knew his intimate routine and had full access to his home. If she was stealing from him, then there was truly no one left to trust. "What's your name, Issa?" he asked, trying to process the information. "Lily," she answered shyly. "And where are your parents, Lily?" The girl's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I don't have a daddy. My mom went away, and now I live with Aunt Carol, but she's sick all the time and can't take care of me, right?" Ethan felt a tightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. This small, vulnerable child awakened something in his hardened soul that he believed had been buried along with his family. But the revelation about Maria consumed him with a growing fury. "Where did you see Maria with the money?" he insisted. "In the little room in there. She always goes there after she cleans and stays for a long time. Yesterday I managed to peek through the keyhole and saw her counting the bills. There was a lot of money, sir." Ethan's mind was racing. Maria had access to every room in his house, knew his routine, knew exactly when he would be away. For 8 years, she could have been stealing amounts he wouldn't even notice, as he was always generous with payments and rarely checked the cash he kept at home. "Show me where you saw this," he said, standing up and opening the door wider. Lily hesitated for a moment, then followed him into the luxurious apartment. Her bare feet left small marks on the marble floor as she walked beside the tall, impatient man. They reached the utility closet, where Maria kept her cleaning products and personal belongings. Ethan had never violated the privacy of that space, trusting his employee completely. But now, with his heart pounding, he opened the door and turned on the light. What he saw left him speechless. On a small makeshift table, there was a considerable amount of money carefully separated into piles. Bills of different values were organized with mathematical precision. Beside it, an open notebook showed detailed accounts and desperate calculations. Ethan's hands trembled as he flipped through the notebook. Each page revealed Maria's financial reality: salary received, expenses on basic food, medicine, transportation, and always, an amount being directed to something identified only as Clara's treatment. Clara must be the sick daughter she mentioned, Ethan thought, feeling the betrayal run through his veins like poison. Lily approached him, watching his expression of pain and anger. "Are you mad?" she asked in her tiny voice. "Very mad," he answered, closing the notebook forcefully. At that moment, they heard the sound of a key in the lock. Maria had arrived for her afternoon shift, as she had religiously for 8 years. Ethan felt every muscle in his body tense as he waited for the inevitable confrontation. Maria's familiar footsteps echoed down the hall until she appeared at the door of the utility closet. Seeing Ethan there with the money and the notebook in his hands, her face went completely pale. Her eyes went from him to Lily, and an expression of pure panic took over her features. "Mr. Hayes, I can explain," she said with a trembling voice. 8 years, Maria. 8 years of trust," he replied, his voice filled with hurt and disappointment. The heavy silence that settled between them was broken only by the sound of Maria's accelerated breathing and Lily's small steps as she hid behind Ethan, as if she knew she had triggered something irreversible. Maria Sanchez remained motionless at the door of the utility closet, her hands trembling visibly as she tried to find words to explain the inexplicable. The years of honest work and dedication seemed to have evaporated before the overwhelming evidence Ethan held in his hands. "Sir, please, let me explain," she began, but her voice failed. Tears began to stream down her cheeks as she watched the look of utter disappointment on the face of the man who had become more than a boss over the years. Ethan clenched his fists, fighting the sense of betrayal that consumed him. "Explain what, Maria? How you abused my trust? How you've been stealing from me all these years while I treated you like family? I never stole anything from you," she exclaimed desperately, taking a step forward. "This money, every single penny of this money is mine." "Yours?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "From your cleaning lady salary you managed to save this fortune. Don't take me for a fool, Maria." Lily watched the argument with her big eyes, instinctively clinging to Ethan's dress pants. Something in the woman's desperate voice made her feel strangely guilty, though she didn't fully understand what she had triggered. Maria took a deep breath, wiping her tears with the back of her hands. "Mr. Hayes, every dollar you see there was saved penny by penny. When you give me money to buy cleaning supplies and groceries, I go to the cheapest markets in town. I buy simpler brand products. I look for sales, I ask for discounts. The difference, I save it." Ethan frowned, processing her words. "That's impossible. You couldn't save this much that way." "Yes, I could, sir. For the last 2 years, I've managed to save up to $100 a month doing this. Besides, I do extra work on my days off. I clean houses on weekends, take care of the elderly, clean small offices. Every penny goes to my Clara's treatment." The mention of her daughter stirred something in Ethan's chest, but he fought against any feeling of compassion. "And why do you hide this from me? Why do you act as if you're stealing?" Maria lowered her eyes, ashamed. "Because I'm afraid, sir. Afraid you'll think I'm being dishonest with the shopping. Afraid of losing my job. Clara has a serious neurological disease and needs very expensive medications. If I lose this job, she'll..." Her voice broke completely, and she collapsed into the small chair in the room, sobbing uncontrollably. It was a cry of accumulated despair, of months fighting alone against an impossible situation. Lily let go of Ethan's pants and walked slowly to Maria. With her small hands, she gently touched the woman's arm. "Don't cry, lady. You're good. I saw you feeding the stray cats." The child's innocent gesture struck Ethan like an arrow. Maria looked at Lily with surprise and affection, even amidst her despair. "Thank you, little one," she whispered. Ethan watched the scene, battling his own emotions. His life had been built on distrust and self-preservation after losing his wife and son in an accident that changed everything forever. Trusting again seemed impossible, but something in the sincerity of Maria's desperation made him question his certainties. "Prove it," he said coldly. "If what you're saying is true, prove it." Maria raised her tear-stained face. "How?" "Show me the receipts, the invoices, the proof of the extra jobs. I want to see every penny accounted for." With trembling hands, Maria opened a small drawer in the table and pulled out a yellowish plastic folder. Inside, there were dozens of papers organized chronologically: shopping receipts, temporary work contracts, payment slips from people for whom she did extra services. Ethan examined each document meticulously. The numbers began to make sense. Maria had indeed saved every possible penny, sacrificing herself in ways he couldn't even imagine. On the grocery receipts, he saw the difference between what she received to buy and what she actually spent. "And your daughter?" he asked, his voice slightly softer. "Clara is 7. She was born with a rare syndrome that affects her neurological development. She needs specialized physical therapy, occupational therapy, and medications that cost over $1,000 a month. Medicaid covers the basics, but for her to have quality of life, she needs private treatment." Lily approached Ethan again. "Sir, the lady isn't bad, I know it. How do you know?" he asked, looking at the girl. "Because when people are really bad, they don't cry. They just get angry. The lady cries because she's scared and because she loves someone very much." The simple wisdom of a 4-year-old hit Ethan unexpectedly. Lily had lived enough to recognize the difference between malice and despair, between cruelty and desperate love. Ethan closed the folder and handed it back to Maria. The silence stretched for long minutes as he processed everything. He had spent 8 years building walls around his heart, and now a lost child and a desperate employee were forcing him to question everything. "Maria," he said finally, "you should have talked to me about your daughter's situation. You always seemed so distant, so closed off to employees' personal problems. I thought you would fire me if you knew I had so many worries," she replied, drying her eyes. It was true. Ethan had deliberately cultivated a cold professional image. After the tragedy that devastated his life, getting emotionally involved with anyone seemed too dangerous. "And you, Lily?" he asked, turning his attention to the girl. "How did you get here? Where is your aunt? Aunt Carol has been sleeping for 2 days. She gets very tired and sometimes doesn't wake up to give me food. I went out to look for something to eat and saw the doorman letting the lady in. I followed her, hidden." Ethan's heart clenched. A 4-year-old child wandering the streets alone because her guardian was incapacitated. "How long has it been since you've eaten?" Lily thought for a moment. "Since yesterday morning. Aunt Carol had a piece of bread, but she said it was hers." Maria stood up immediately. "Sir, can I prepare something for the girl? She's starving." Ethan nodded, watching Maria take Lily to the kitchen. He was left alone in the utility closet, surrounded by the evidence of the silent struggle happening right under his nose. An employee sacrificing for her child, a child abandoned to her own fate, and he, a rich and powerful man, completely oblivious to the suffering around him. When he reached the kitchen, he found Lily devouring a sandwich while Maria heated milk. The simple domestic scene touched him in a way he didn't expect. "Maria," he said, making a decision that would change everything, "I want to meet Clara, and I want to meet Lily's aunt too." Maria almost dropped the milk mug. "Sir, If I'm going to really understand what's happening, I need to see it with my own eyes. Maria's house was in a working-class neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown Charlotte, a simple three-room structure she shared with her daughter Clara. When Ethan parked his BMW on the narrow street, he felt the curious and suspicious stares of the neighbors. A man in an expensive suit in that area attracted unwanted attention. "Sir, are you sure?" Maria asked nervously as she opened the small iron gate. "The house is very humble." "I'm sure," Ethan replied, holding Lily's hand, who had insisted on accompanying them. The girl had flatly refused to go back to her aunt's house before seeing the good lady's sick girl. The interior of the house was clean but extremely modest. Old but well cared for furniture, walls with peeling paint in some spots, and a constant smell of medicine that signaled the presence of chronic illness. In the small living room, a 7-year-old girl was lying on a sofa adapted as a bed, surrounded by colorful pillows and blankets. Clara was too thin for her age, with sparse brown hair and eyes that shone with a lively intelligence despite her body's obvious fragility. When she saw her mother enter accompanied by strangers, she tried to sit up, but the effort was clearly exhausting. "Mommy, who are they?" Clara asked in a sweet but weak voice. "This is Lily, a new little friend, and this is Mr. Hayes, my boss," Maria explained, rushing to help her daughter get more comfortable. Lily let go of Ethan's hand and walked over to Clara with the natural curiosity of children. "Hi, why are you so pale?" "Lily!" Maria scolded, embarrassed. "It's okay," Clara smiled weakly. "I have a sickness that makes my body not work right. That's why I get tired and have to lie down a lot." Ethan observed the girls' interaction while analyzing the environment. He saw expensive medications scattered on a makeshift table, basic medical equipment, and piles of medical reports carefully organized in a box. The reality of Maria's daily struggle materialized before his eyes in a raw and undeniable way. "Clara needs physical therapy 3 times a week," Maria explained, noticing Ethan's interest in the equipment. "And she has appointments with a neurologist, an occupational therapist, and a speech therapist. Public services offer the basics, but the waiting lists are huge, and the care is limited. In private care, she has closer follow-up and more effective medications. And how much does all this cost per month?" Ethan asked directly. Maria hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "Between $1,200 and $1,500. It depends on the medication she needs in that period." Ethan did some quick mental calculations. The salary he paid Maria was fair by local market standards, but it was obvious she desperately needed to supplement her income to afford her daughter's treatment. Lily had sat on the floor next to Clara's sofa and started chatting excitedly about birds and flowers, topics that seemed to fascinate both girls. The natural way they interacted contrasted sharply with the adults' tension. "Mr. Hayes," Clara said suddenly, interrupting the girls' private conversation, "my mum said you are very stern and serious, but you don't seem stern." The child's direct observation caught Ethan off guard. "And what do I seem like?" "Sad," Clara answered with the brutal honesty of children, "like my mum when she thinks I'm not looking." An awkward silence filled the room. Maria lowered her eyes, embarrassed by her daughter's sharp perception. Lily looked between the adults, sensing the tension but not fully understanding its source. "Clara is right," Ethan said finally. "I'm sad. I lost important people, and since then it's been hard to trust anyone." "Why?" asked Lily with her childish curiosity. "Because when we lose people we love, we start to be afraid of loving other people," Ethan explained, surprised by his own honesty. "But if you don't love anyone, you stay alone forever," Clara observed wisely. "That's true. And being alone hurts a lot too," he admitted. Maria watched the conversation with growing surprise. The cold, distant man she had known for 8 years was opening up emotionally in front of 2 children in a way she had never witnessed. "Maria," Ethan said, turning to her. I need to meet Lily's aunt now. I want to understand the whole situation. Aunt Carol's house was 2 blocks away, an even simpler structure that looked like it had been neglected for months. The paint on the walls was peeling, the small yard was overgrown with weeds, and a strong odor of mold and expired medication permeated the air. Lily led them to the front door, which was just ajar. "Aunt Carol?" she called in her small voice. "I brought some friends." There was no answer. Ethan gently pushed the door and entered, followed by Maria and Lily. What they found shocked him deeply. Aunt Carol, a woman of about 70, was lying on an old bed in the living room, breathing with difficulty. She was visibly dehydrated, with yellowish skin and extremely thin. Expired medication scattered on the floor revealed a situation of complete abandonment. "My God," whispered Maria, running to the old woman. "Mrs. Carroll, can you hear me?" The elderly woman opened her eyes with effort. Who are you?" "I'm Maria, and this is my boss, Mr. Hayes. We came with Lily. You're very sick. You need urgent medical help." Aunt Carol tried to sit up, but had no strength. Lily. "My girl. I can't anymore. I can't take care of her right. I'm too sick." Ethan approached the bed, assessing the critical situation. The house had no proper food, the medications were inadequate or expired, and Carol herself was clearly in a severe state of malnutrition and untreated illness. "How long has it been since you've had a decent meal?" he asked. "I don't remember," she murmured weakly. "My social security doesn't cover everything. I choose between my medicine and food." "Between my food and Lily's. And where is Lily's mother?" Ethan insisted. Aunt Carol's face twisted into an expression of deep emotional pain. "Marina. My niece. She ran away months ago. She was with a very violent man. She got scared and left the girl with me. Said she'd come back when she got herself together, but she didn't come back," Ethan completed. "I don't even know if she's alive," Aunt Carol confessed, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. "And now I can't take care of Lily anymore. My diabetes is out of control. My heart is weak. The girl is alone all day while I sleep or get confused because of the medication." Lily approached the bed and held her aunt's trembling hand. "Don't be sad, Auntie. The nice man is going to help us. He's good, just hurt on the inside." Lily's innocent description of him struck Ethan like a lightning bolt. That was exactly it. He was hurt on the inside, and that wound had infected every aspect of his life for years. Maria looked between Ethan and the desperate situation in the house, waiting for some decision from her boss. The afternoon was progressing, and it was obvious that both Aunt Carol and Lily needed urgent intervention. "Maria," Ethan said finally, "we're taking Mrs. Carroll to a hospital, and Lily is coming with us." "Sir, but—" Maria began. "No arguments. These two can't spend another night in these conditions." When they left the house, carrying Aunt Carol in Ethan's arms, she weighed frighteningly little. Some neighbors approached, curious and concerned. It was obvious the situation had gradually deteriorated, and no one knew exactly how to help. On the way to the hospital, Lily slept in the back of the BMW, exhausted for the first time in days. Maria held Aunt Carol's hand, while Ethan drove in silence, processing how his life had completely changed in just a few hours. What he didn't know was that the most dramatic change was yet to come. Mercy General Hospital was bustling when Ethan arrived carrying Aunt Carol in his arms, followed by Maria with a sleepy Lily clinging to her hand. The scene immediately caught the attention of the emergency room staff, who quickly provided a gurney for the old woman. "She's diabetic and hypertensive, but she hasn't had medical follow-up for months," Ethan explained to the nurse who took over. "She's dehydrated and malnourished. And what is your relationship to the patient?" the employee asked, filling out the admission form. The simple question left Ethan momentarily speechless. Technically, he had no relationship with these people he had met just hours ago. I'm a friend of the family. He lied. Maria looked at him in surprise, but said nothing. Lily, still half asleep, had clung to Ethan's arm as if he were a close relative. The girl also needs to be examined, Ethan said, indicating Lily. She's malnourished and without proper medical care. While they waited in the waiting room, Ethan had time to process the magnitude of the situation he had gotten himself into. In less than a day, he had gone from a lonely, suspicious businessman to someone responsible for 3 people in extreme vulnerability. "Mr. Hayes," Maria said softly, while Lily dozed in a chair beside them, "you didn't have to do this. It's not your responsibility." "Maybe not," he replied, "but I can't pretend I didn't see it either." The doctor on duty, Dr. David Roberts, came out of the examination room where he had seen Aunt Carol with a serious expression on his face. He approached the trio in the waiting room. "The lady is in a severe state of diabetic decompensation and severe dehydration," he explained. "She'll need to be hospitalized for at least a week to stabilize her glucose levels and treat a urinary tract infection that has developed. Without treatment, she could have slipped into a diabetic coma." Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. If he hadn't found Lily that afternoon, he probably would have found Aunt Carol in an even worse state, or maybe it would have been too late. "And the girl?" Maria asked. "Mild malnutrition, but nothing that can't be resolved with proper nutrition and pediatric follow-up. The biggest problem is the social issue. With her legal guardian hospitalized, she needs to be in someone's care." "She can stay with me," Ethan said impulsively. The doctor frowned. "Sir, legally that's complicated. We would need to contact Child Protective Services to assess the situation. The child needs to stay with family or in temporary foster care." The mention of foster care made Lily wake up completely, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't want to go to a place for lost kids," she said, clinging even tighter to Ethan's arm. "You won't," he promised, not knowing exactly how he would keep that promise. In the following 3 weeks, Ethan's life changed radically. Lily was temporarily placed in his care after a series of meetings with social workers and the presentation of documents proving his financial ability to provide for the child. His rigid business routine was replaced by school schedules, doctor's appointments, and the constant needs of a 4-year-old girl. Maria became much more than a cleaning lady. She helped with Lily's care, teaching Ethan about childhood routines he had completely forgotten since losing his own son years ago. The house that was once silent and impersonal now echoed with laughter, constant questions, and the natural energy of a child. "Uncle Ethan," Lily said one morning, using the affectionate title she had spontaneously adopted, "why don't you have a family?" They were having breakfast in the kitchen, and Ethan almost choked on his coffee. "I had a family," he answered carefully, "but they had to go away. Like my mom. Different from your mom. Your mom might come back one day." Lily processed this information with the typical seriousness of children. "Are you sad because they can't come back?" "I am," he admitted, "but now you have me and Maria, and Clara too, and Aunt Carol when she gets out of the hospital." The simplicity with which Lily reorganized the concept of family touched him deeply. For her, family was whoever cared and was cared for, regardless of blood ties. However, not everything was easy. The neighbors in the condo started making comments about the constant presence of a child in the apartment. Some partners at his company questioned his frequent absences and changes in behavior. "Ethan, we need to talk," said Mark Thompson, his oldest partner, during a meeting at the company. "Your clients are complaining that you've been distracted. Yesterday you cancelled 3 important meetings because you had to take a child to the doctor." "The meetings were rescheduled," Ethan replied defensively. "It's not just that. Everyone is talking about your domestic situation. A single man taking care of a girl who appeared out of nowhere. That creates rumors." Ethan felt the anger rise. "What kind of rumors?" "You know what kind. People talk, they question your motives. This could affect the company's reputation. The motives are simple. A child needed help, and I helped. But what about now? Are you going to raise this girl? Become a single father overnight? This is crazy, Ethan. That night, Ethan lay awake thinking about his partner's words. Was he being reckless? Was his impulsive decision to help putting everything he had built professionally at risk? The next morning, he received an unexpected call. It was Dr. Roberts from the hospital. "Mr. Hayes, I need to speak with you urgently about Mrs. Carroll," the doctor said in a tense voice. "Did she get worse?" "No, actually, she has improved significantly. But yesterday she told me something you need to know. It's about Lily's mother." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. What about her? Mrs. Carroll remembered where Marina was working before she disappeared. And there's more. She didn't run away from an abusive relationship, as she initially said. "What do you mean?" "Marina worked as a domestic helper for a wealthy family here in Charlotte. The family's name is Hayes." Ethan's blood ran cold. Hayes was a common surname, but something in the way the doctor spoke set off an alarm in his mind. "Which Hayes family?" he asked in a hoarse voice. According to Mrs. Carroll, Marina worked for a couple, Edward and Patricia Hayes. They had a young son who passed away in an accident a few years ago. After that, Marina disappeared. Ethan dropped the phone. Edward was his brother. Patricia was his sister-in-law. The little boy who died in the accident was his nephew Gregory. Marina wasn't just any stranger. Marina was his former sister-in-law. And Lily. Lily was his niece. The girl he had taken in as a stranger in need was in fact the daughter of Marina, the woman who had mysteriously disappeared after the funeral of Edward, Patricia, and Gregory. The woman he had searched for months, blaming her for abandoning the family when they needed her most. Lily entered the living room at that moment, wearing the pink pajamas Maria had bought for her, holding a drawing she had made at school. "Uncle Ethan, are you okay?" "You're pale," she said, concerned. Ethan looked at the child who had transformed his life, at the brown eyes that were identical to Edward's, at the smile that reminded him so much of Gregory's when he was little. How had he not noticed before? How had Marina changed so much that he didn't recognize her in the descriptions? And most importantly, where was Marina now, and why had she abandoned her own daughter? The revelation hit Ethan like an emotional avalanche he wasn't prepared to face. He sat down heavily on the sofa, watching Lily play innocently on the rug, completely oblivious to the earthquake that had just shaken her Uncle Ethan's life. The memories began to reorganize in his mind like pieces of a grim puzzle. Marina had been a constant presence in Edward and Patricia's life. A young woman of 22 when she married Edward, always cheerful and affectionate, especially with Gregory. After the accident that devastated the family, she simply disappeared, leaving only a vague letter about needing time to process the loss. Ethan had deeply resented Marina's abandonment. At the time, he interpreted her departure as cowardice, as a betrayal of his brother's and sister-in-law's memory. He never imagined she was pregnant when she fled, or that she carried Lily in her womb during those months of mourning and despair. "Uncle Ethan, are you going to cry?" asked Lily, noticing the tears starting to stream down his face. "No, my little one," he lied, quickly drying his eyes. "I'm just remembering important people. People who went away and can't come back. Something like that." Lily abandoned her toys and approached him, climbing onto the sofa with the familiarity she had developed over the past few weeks. "You know what Maria told me? That when people go away from our bodies, they stay in our hearts. And in our hearts, they never really go away." The childish wisdom repeating Maria's words moved him even more. Lily didn't know she was talking about the father and uncles she never knew, about the family she lost before she even knew she had one. Lily, he said carefully, do you remember anything about your mother? What was she like? The girl frowned, concentrating. She had long hair and smelled nice, and she sang a sad song when she thought I was sleeping. But then she got very thin and cried a lot. Do you remember why she cried? I don't know. She would say names I didn't know. Edward, Gregory. She would say she did something wrong and didn't deserve to be a mother. Ethan's heart broke. Marina had fled carrying a guilt that probably wasn't even hers, destroyed by the loss of her family and convinced she didn't deserve the happiness of raising a daughter. Maria arrived at that moment, returning from the supermarket with grocery bags. She immediately noticed the tension in the air. Did something happen? She asked worriedly. Maria, we need to talk. Alone, Ethan said, gesturing to the bedroom with his eyes. In the room, Ethan told her everything he had discovered. Maria listened in growing silence, her hands covering her mouth when he finished explaining the family connection. My God, she whispered, the girl is your real niece, and Marina. Marina was your sister-in-law. She was, and now I need to find her. Lily has the right to know who her mother is, and Marina has the right to know her daughter is safe. But, sir, if Marina abandoned the girl with Mrs. Carroll, maybe she doesn't want, or maybe she's desperate and doesn't know how to come back, Ethan interrupted. Marina was always a good person. Something very serious must have happened for her to abandon her own daughter. In the following days, Ethan began a discreet search for Marina. He hired a private investigator, checked employment records at domestic work agencies, and even placed discreet ads in Los Angeles newspapers, the city where Aunt Carol had mentioned Marina was. The first lead came a week later. The investigator, Roger Davis, called with information. I found a Marina Wallace working as a cleaner in a commercial building in Silver Lake, he said. The physical description matches what you gave me, but there's something strange. What? She's using a fake name on her work documents, and the people who work with her say she avoids any conversation about family or the past. When can I see her? She works Monday to Friday, from 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. But Mr. Hayes, I suggest you be careful. If she's been hiding for 4 years, she might get scared if you show up suddenly. Ethan spent the next 2 days carefully planning the meeting. He decided it would be better to go alone initially, so as not to overwhelm Marina with Lily's presence right away. On Thursday morning, he drove to Los Angeles. The commercial building in Silver Lake was modern, but not luxurious, housing small offices and clinics. He arrived at 2 in the afternoon, the time Marina finished her shift. When she came out of the building, Ethan almost didn't recognize her. The cheerful and lively Marina he had known had become a woman who was too thin, with hair cut very short and a hunched posture that betrayed years of hard work. She wore simple clothes and carried an old backpack, but her eyes were the same, just much sadder. Marina, he called softly. She turned, and upon seeing him went completely pale. For a moment it looked like she might faint. Then she turned sharply and started to run. Marina, wait! Ethan shouted, running after her. She ran for 2 blocks before tripping and falling on the sidewalk. When Ethan reached her, she was sobbing uncontrollably. Please, leave me alone, she begged without looking up. I know you all hate me. I know I was a coward. But I can't. I can't go back. Ethan knelt beside her on the sidewalk, ignoring the stares of passers-by. Marina, no one hates you, and you have a daughter who needs you. Lily, she whispered, the name coming out like a prayer. How is she? Did Mrs. Carroll manage to take care of her? Mrs. Carroll is in the hospital. Lily was starving, Marina, alone and abandoned. Marina raised her face, revealing years of suffering etched in every line of her expression. I tried to come back so many times. But look at me, Ethan. Look at what I've become. How can I raise a daughter like this? It's not about how you are now. It's about who you can become again. I don't deserve her. I abandoned my daughter because I couldn't handle the guilt. I'm a terrible mother. Marina, what happened on the night of the accident wasn't your fault. She looked at him with eyes full of pain. Of course it was. I should have stopped Edward from driving. He had been drinking. He was upset about that stupid fight we had at dinner. If I hadn't argued with Patricia about Gregory's upbringing, if I hadn't created that tense atmosphere, they wouldn't have left the house that night. Ethan finally understood the source of the guilt that had destroyed Marina. She carried on her shoulders the responsibility for a tragedy she hadn't caused, for circumstances that were beyond her control. Marina, hundreds of factors contributed to that accident. The rain, the truck that ran the red light, the slippery road. A family argument didn't kill my brother, but there is no if I. What happened, happened. And now there's a 4-year-old girl who draws sad birds because she misses her mother. Marina began to cry harder. She draws birds every day. And she sings the song you used to sing to her when she was a baby. Does she remember me? She remembers. And she loves you. And she's waiting for you to come back, even without knowing she's waiting. At that moment, on a busy Los Angeles sidewalk, 2 people destroyed by the same tragedy began to find a way back home. But Marina still had a secret that would make everything more complicated. Ethan, she said between sobs, there's something about Lily you need to know. Something I discovered after she was born, and that made me run even further away. The silence that followed Marina's words was filled with a tension that made Ethan fear what was to come. Still sitting on the sidewalk, he watched his former sister-in-law struggle to find words for something that had clearly tormented her for years. "Marina, what do you mean?" he asked softly. She took a deep breath, wiping her tears with the back of her hands. Lily. Lily is not Edward's daughter. The world around Ethan seemed to stop. What do you mean? When I found out I was pregnant, it had been 3 months since Edward and we were going through a crisis in our marriage. He was very stressed with the company, and I felt neglected. It was a very difficult period. Ethan felt like he was sinking in quicksand. Then who? It was just one time. One night when Edward was away on business, and I felt completely alone and rejected. I met up with a college friend at a bar. One thing led to another, and it happened. Marina paused, the weight of the confession clearly hurting her. When I found out I was pregnant, I did the math and realized it could be either Edward's or Ryan's. I never had the courage to get a paternity test. Edward was so happy with the news that I couldn't destroy his joy with doubt. Ethan processed the information in shock. And Edward never knew. He never knew. And when Lily was born, she looked so much like me that it was impossible to be sure. Until she started to grow, and some of Ryan's features became evident. What features? The shape of her eyes, mainly. And she has a birthmark on her right shoulder, just like Ryan's. Edward was too distracted to notice these things, but I saw them every day. Ethan got up from the sidewalk, pacing in small circles as he tried to process the revelation. Is that why you ran away after the accident? Because you felt guilty for deceiving my brother? It was one of the reasons. The main one was that, with Edward deceased, I knew that sooner or later the truth would come out, especially if you or other relatives wanted to do DNA tests for inheritance matters. Lily had no legal right to anything from the Hayes family, and you preferred to abandon your daughter rather than face the truth. Marina started crying again. I was destroyed, Ethan. I had lost my husband, my sister-in-law, and my stepson in an accident I thought was my fault. And I was still carrying the secret of Lily's paternity. I thought running away would be better for everyone. Better for whom, Marina? For Lily, who grew up without a mother. For Mrs. Carroll, who sacrificed to care for a sick and resourceless child. For you, who spent 4 years running from your own life. Ethan's words were harsh, but necessary. Marina needed to face the consequences of her decisions. "You're right," she admitted. "I was selfish. I only thought about my pain and forgot that Lily needed me, regardless of who her father was. And where is Ryan now?" "I don't know. We lost touch right after that night. He was married, had kids. He probably doesn't even imagine he might have a daughter." Ethan sat down again next to Marina. "Marina, this doesn't change anything about how I feel about Lily. She's still part of our family. Edward loved her as a daughter, cared for her as a father. That's what matters. But what now? What are we going to do? Now you're going to come back to Charlotte with me, and you're going to meet the extraordinary woman your daughter has become." Marina shook her head negatively. "I can't. Look at me, Ethan. I have no home, no stability, nothing to offer her. What if she rejects me? What if she doesn't want to know me? Lily is a 4-year-old child who draws sad birds because she misses her mother. She doesn't care if you're rich or poor. She just wants her mom back, but I've changed so much. I'm not the person she remembers." "Then become the person she needs you to be." It took 2 hours of conversation for Marina to agree to return with Ethan. She asked for a few days to arrange her departure from her job and pack her few belongings. They agreed she would travel to Charlotte at the end of the following week. During the drive back, Ethan thought about how to tell Lily everything. The child had gotten used to the idea that her mother had gone away and would now need to process her return, and especially how to explain the family complexities that not even the adults fully understood. When he got home, he found Lily and Maria making cookies in the kitchen. The domestic scene moved him, especially now that he knew the true story behind Lily's life. "Uncle Ethan!" Lily shouted, running to hug him. "We made chocolate chip cookies for you." "How delicious," he said, picking her up. "Lily, I need to talk to you about something important." Maria noticed the seriousness in Ethan's tone and discreetly moved away to give them privacy for what was clearly going to be a delicate conversation. "What is it, Uncle?" asked Lily, her big eyes fixed on his face. "Remember how you always ask about your mum?" "Yes, the one who went away and might come back one day. That's right." "Well, I found her." Lily's eyes widened. "You found my mom? Where was she?" "In Los Angeles. She was working there, but she misses you very much." "Does she want to see me?" "She wants to very much, but she's a little different from what you remember. People change when they're sad for a long time." Lily processed this with the typical seriousness of children. "Will she still love me?" "She'll love you more than anything in the world. And will I have to leave you and Maria?" The question Ethan dreaded most had arrived. Not necessarily. We can all be a big family, with lots of people who love and take care of each other. Like when Clara comes to play here and Maria gets all happy, exactly like that. Lily smiled, and Ethan felt immense relief. Children had an extraordinary capacity to accept change when they felt safe and loved. "When am I going to see my mum?" "Next week." "But Lily, there's something you need to understand. Your mum is very nervous because she's been away from you for a long time. She's afraid you won't like her anymore. That's silly. Mums are forever, even when they go away." Once again, Lily's childish wisdom surprised Ethan. She intuitively understood concepts that adults complicated with fears and insecurities. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan told Maria everything. The housekeeper listened in silence, asking pointed questions to better understand the situation. "Mr. Hayes," she said finally, "the girl is going to be confused with so much change at once. First, she finds out she has a mother who's coming back. Then she'll discover complicated issues about the family. Maybe it's better to go slowly." "You're right. But Marina needs support too. She's destroyed by guilt and the time she's been away. And you, sir? How are you feeling about all this?" Maria's question caught him off guard. Ethan was so focused on taking care of everyone around him that he hadn't stopped to process his own emotions. Confused, he admitted. "Lily may not be my biological niece, but she's become my daughter in my heart. Marina made wrong choices, but she's been suffering the consequences for years. And I discovered that I could love again. even after vowing I would never get emotionally involved with anyone again. Love isn't something we control, sir. It just happens when we find people who need it. The following Friday, Ethan received a phone call that would once again change the course of the whole situation. It was Marina, and she was crying desperately. "Ethan, I can't go. I can't come back anymore. What happened?" Ryan. Ryan found me. Marina's phone call put Ethan on high alert. He could hear the panic in her voice through the line, and he immediately knew something very serious had happened. "Marina, tell me what's happening." "Slowly," he said, trying to stay calm. "Ryan showed up at my work yesterday," she sobbed. "Someone must have shown him the ads you put in the papers looking for me. He found out about Lily. And what does he want?" At first, he was shocked. He said he never imagined he could have a daughter, but then he started making demands. Ethan felt a chill down his spine. What kind of demands? He wants to meet Lily. He wants a paternity test, and he's threatening to tell his wife about our night together if I don't cooperate. "Marina, where are you now?" "In the cheap hotel near the bus station. I can't go back to the apartment I was renting. He found out where I live." "Are you in danger?" "I don't know." Ryan was always unstable. He had anger issues when we were in college, and now he's been married for 15 years, has 3 kids. If his wife finds out about Lily, it will destroy his family. Ethan started pacing in his office. The situation was escalating quickly. "Marina, listen. You're coming to Charlotte today. I'm going to pick you up. I can't drag you all into this mess. Lily is our priority now, and you're her mother. We'll solve this together." After much insisting, Marina agreed to meet Ethan at the bus station in Los Angeles. She would take a bus to an intermediate point, and he would pick her up there to prevent Ryan from following her. Before leaving, Ethan had to explain to Lily that her mother's return would be delayed for a few days due to work problems. The girl was disappointed, but accepted it with the resilience she had developed during her 4 difficult years. "Uncle Ethan," she said as he prepared to leave, "is my mom afraid of something?" Lily's sharp perception always surprised him. "Why do you think that?" "Because when people have work problems, they get annoyed. But when they're afraid, they change plans suddenly." Ethan knelt down to her level. "Your mom is a little scared, yes. But I'm going to take care of her just like I take care of you. Can you tell her I'm not mad, that she's taking a long time to come back?" "I can, my little one." The trip to Los Angeles was tense. Ethan thought about all the implications of the situation. Ryan was apparently a married man with an established family, who now discovered he had a daughter from an extramarital affair. Depending on how he decided to handle the situation, it could drastically complicate Lily's life. Marina was waiting for him in a diner near the bus station, visibly thinner and with deep, dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing sunglasses, even though it was late afternoon, clearly trying to hide. "Thank you for coming," she said when he sat down at the table. "How are you?" "Destroyed." Ryan became completely obsessed when he learned about Lily. "He called me 15 times yesterday, sent messages all through the night. He's demanding that I bring the girl to Los Angeles for him to meet. And what did you say? That Lily isn't an object to be moved around according to the will of adults. That she has a stable life now, and I won't tear her away from it just to satisfy his curiosity." Ethan felt proud of Marina's firm stance. And did he accept that? Of course not. He started yelling that he had rights as a father, that he would go to court, that he would tell his family everything. It was a terrible mess. During the drive back to Charlotte, Marina shared more details about Ryan. He was a lawyer specializing in corporate law, married to a doctor, and father of 3 teenage children. He had a solid reputation in his community, but he had always been possessive and controlling in relationships. In college, when we dated briefly, he was pathologically jealous. He would follow me and question every conversation I had with other classmates, Marina explained. That's why we broke up. I didn't imagine he still had those traits. And how did he find you exactly? He said he hired an investigator after seeing the ads in the papers. Apparently, it wasn't hard to locate me once he knew my full name. When they arrived in Charlotte, Ethan took Marina directly to his home. Lily was asleep, and he decided to wait until the next morning for the reunion. Marina needed a night to recover emotionally before facing the daughter she hadn't seen in years. Maria prepared the guest room for Marina and, with her usual sensitivity, kept the conversation light during dinner, allowing Lily's mother to gradually adapt to the environment. "The girl is eager to see you," Maria said softly. "She's prepared drawings to show you." Marina started to cry again. What if she doesn't recognize me? What if she rejects me after all this time? "A child's love for a mother doesn't disappear," Maria answered with conviction. "It might lie dormant, but it always awakens when we need it." During the night, Ethan was awakened by noises in the kitchen. He found Marina sitting at the table, looking out the window and holding a cup of tea. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared of disappointing Lily again. Scared that Ryan will show up here and cause trouble. Scared that I won't be able to be the mother she deserves." Ethan sat next to her. "Marina, you made mistakes in the past. We all have. But what matters now is what you do from today on. What if Ryan decides to fight for custody? He has money, stability, a structured family. I have nothing. You have something he doesn't. You're the mother, and Lily loves you, even after everything." The next day, the reunion happened more naturally than anyone could have imagined. Lily came down for breakfast and simply stopped when she saw Marina sitting at the table. For a few seconds, mother and daughter looked at each other in silence. "Mom," Lily whispered. "Hi, my little one," Marina answered, tears streaming down her face. Lily walked slowly towards her, touching her face with her small hands as if to make sure she was real. "You look different. I'm older and sadder, but I'm still your mum." "I knew you would come back," Lily said, hugging Marina. "I made drawings of you every day so you wouldn't forget me. I never forgot you. Not for a single day." The emotional moment was interrupted by the ringing of the phone. Ethan answered, and his expression changed immediately. "It's Ryan," he said in a low voice to Marina. "He wants to talk to you." Marina turned pale. How did he get this number? Probably the same investigator. Lily sensed the adult's tension. "Who is Ryan?" she asked innocently. It was then that Marina made a decision that would change everything once again. "Lily," she said, taking a deep breath, "Ryan might be your real father." The ensuing silence was deafening. Lily looked between Marina and Ethan, trying to process information that was too complex for her age. "But Uncle Ethan said my dad had already gone away and couldn't come back," she said, confused. "The situation is complicated, my little one," said Marina, "and now Ryan wants to meet you." The phone continued to ring insistently, and Ethan knew they would have to answer sooner or later. Lily's life was about to get complicated in ways none of them had foreseen. Ethan finally answered the phone, while Marina held Lily in her lap, trying to shield her from a conversation that promised to be difficult. "Hello," Ethan said in a controlled voice. "You must be the Ethan who's hiding my daughter," said an aggressive male voice on the other end of the line. "I'm Ryan Davidson, Lily's father." "A father is who raises a child, not just who procreates," Ethan replied coldly. "And Lily isn't hidden. She's being cared for and protected. Protected from me, her own father. Protected from anyone who might cause emotional instability for a child who has already suffered enough abandonment." Marina made desperate gestures at Ethan, signaling that she didn't want the conversation to escalate into an argument. Lily watched everything with her big eyes, clearly sensing that something very serious was happening. "Listen carefully," said Ryan, his voice becoming more threatening. You have no legal authority over this child. I have rights as the biological father, and I can go to court to exercise them, and I can go to court for child abandonment, Ethan retorted. Where were you when Lily was starving? Where were you when she needed medical care? I didn't know she existed. Now you know. And what do you plan to do? Destroy the stability she's finally achieved to satisfy your guilty conscience? The conversation was cut short when Ryan hung up abruptly. Ethan looked at Marina, who was visibly shaken. He's coming here, she said with certainty. I know that tone. When Ryan decides on something, he doesn't give up easily. Lily, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke. Mom, do I have to go with the man on the phone? Marina hugged her daughter tighter. No, my little one. No one is going to take you from here against your will. Maria, who had watched the whole scene, approached. Mr. Hayes, maybe it's best to talk to a lawyer. If this Ryan is really a lawyer, as Marina said, he knows the legal channels. Ethan agreed and immediately called his lawyer, Mr. Henry Austin, quickly explaining the situation. The lawyer asked to meet with them the same day to discuss legal options. At Mr. Austin's office, Marina told the whole story from the beginning. The lawyer listened attentively, taking notes and asking specific questions about dates, documents, and Lily's legal situation. The situation is complex, said Mr. Austin finally. Marina, you are the biological mother and have de facto custody of the child. Ryan, if confirmed as the biological father, has parental rights. But Ethan, as the person who took over the child's care in a situation of abandonment, also has legal arguments. What would be the worst-case scenario? Asked Ethan. Ryan getting a court order for a paternity test and being confirmed as the father, demanding shared custody or even full custody, alleging that Marina is unstable for having abandoned the child. Marina paled. He can take Lily from me for good. He can try, but we have strong arguments against it. Paternal abandonment for 4 years, the child's current stability, and most importantly, the best interest of the minor. And what if he just shows up here and tries to take Lily by force? Asked Ethan. That would be kidnapping. I'll prepare preventive documentation establishing that Lily is under your temporary custody, Marina, and under Ethan's care as a de facto guardian. When they returned home, they found an unpleasant surprise. A man was standing in front of the condominium's gate, clearly waiting for them. That's Ryan, Marina murmured, instinctively ducking down in the back seat of the car. Ryan Davidson was a man of about 40, well-dressed, with an imposing physical presence and a determined expression on his face. When he saw Ethan's car approaching, he walked directly towards them. Ethan parked and got out of the car, positioning himself between Ryan and the vehicle where Marina remained hidden. You must be Ethan, said Ryan, extending his hand in a seemingly cordial manner. I am Ryan Davidson. We need to talk. Ethan did not shake the offered hand. There's nothing to talk about as long as you maintain this intimidating posture. Intimidating. I came here civilly to meet my daughter. Your daughter is in a stable and happy situation. Your sudden presence would only cause confusion and anxiety for her. I have rights as a father. Rights are earned, not demanded. Where were you when Lily needed you? Ryan lost his seemingly civilized composure. I didn't know she existed. If Marina had told me. What would you have done? Left your wife and 3 children to take on a daughter from an extramarital affair? The question hit Ryan exactly where Ethan intended. The man hesitated, revealing he hadn't fully thought through the consequences of his demands. That's different, he stammered. Different how? You want to meet Lily, but you don't want your family to know she exists. You want to exercise paternal rights, but you don't want to assume paternal responsibilities. Marina finally got out of the car, deciding to face the situation. Ryan, let's talk somewhere else. Lily doesn't need to witness this. Marina, finally, you can't deny me the right to meet my daughter. I'm not denying you. I'm trying to protect her from a situation she's not prepared to understand. She's 4 years old. What's so hard to understand? I'm her father. Ryan, you have 3 children in Los Angeles, a wife who doesn't know about Lily's existence. How exactly do you plan to include a daughter from an extramarital affair in your family life? The question left Ryan visibly uncomfortable. I'll figure that out. How? By telling your wife you cheated on her 5 years ago and have a secret daughter? By introducing Lily to your other children as their bastard sister? Have you thought about how that would affect all the children involved? Ethan watched the argument, noticing that Marina was being more assertive than he expected. The years of solitude and struggle had given her a strength she didn't possess before. Marina, I can give Lily things you can't, said Ryan, changing his strategy. A better education, financial stability, a structured family. A structured family based on a lie? Lily would grow up knowing she's a dirty secret that needs to be hidden. It wouldn't be like that. It would be exactly like that. Ryan, and you know it. At that moment, Lily appeared at the apartment window, probably curious about the commotion at the gate. Ryan saw her, and his face transformed completely. Is that her? He asked, his voice emotional. It is, Marina answered. Ryan watched Lily intensely, trying to find physical similarities, features that would confirm his paternity. The girl from the window above waved shyly, thinking he was a friend of the adults. She's beautiful, he said, his voice choked with emotion. She's more than beautiful. She's brave, intelligent, loving, and resilient. She overcame abandonment, neglect, and hunger and still manages to smile every day. She deserves more than a part-time father who would treat her like a secret. I need to think, said Ryan, clearly shaken by seeing Lily. Do think, said Marina. Think about whether you're prepared to really be a father, or if you just want to satisfy your curiosity and ease your conscience. Ryan left without another word, but both Marina and Ethan knew he would be back. The question was when, and with what kind of plans. That night, Lily asked a question that caught everyone off guard. Mom, why was the man downstairs crying when he saw me? Marina didn't know how to answer. How could she explain to a 4-year-old child that there was a man who could be her father, but who could also completely complicate the life she had finally stabilized? Sometimes adults cry when they see things that remind them of important people, she answered carefully. Did he remember someone when he saw me? Could be. Lily thought for a moment. He looked sad, like you used to before you came back. Once again, Lily's sharp perception surprised the adults. She had managed to capture in seconds something Ryan was trying to hide, his own confusion and sadness in the face of an impossible situation. 3 days passed with no news from Ryan, but the tension in the house remained palpable. Marina barely slept, always alert for any noise that might indicate his presence. Lily, with her childish sensitivity, absorbed the adult's anxiety and started having nightmares again, something that hadn't happened since her first weeks with Ethan. The situation grew even more complicated when Ethan received an unexpected call from Mark Thompson, his partner, scheduling an urgent meeting to discuss critical business issues. At the company office, Ethan found not only Mark, but also 2 other main partners and the firm's corporate lawyer. Ethan, sit down, Mark said with a grave expression. We need to talk about the situation you've created. What situation? The situation with this child. And now, with the mother too. The rumors are spreading through the city, affecting our reputation. Ethan felt his irritation grow. What rumors? People are saying you're involved with a married woman and that you're raising her daughter as if she were yours. Some clients have already questioned our moral integrity. This is ridiculous. Marina isn't married, and Lily is a child who needed help. Mr. Arnold Smith, the corporate lawyer, spoke up. Ethan, regardless of the actual facts, the public perception is harming us. 3 clients have cancelled contracts in the last week, and you think this has to do with me? It has everything to do with it, said Mark. Charlotte is a city where everyone knows everyone. A 45-year-old single businessman who suddenly appears taking care of a 4-year-old child raises questions. What kind of questions? The kind of questions that destroy reputations, answered Mr. Smith, especially when a man shows up claiming to be the child's biological father and threatening lawsuits. Ethan stood up abruptly. Ryan contacted you? Yesterday, Mark confirmed. He said that you and a woman are preventing him from exercising his paternal rights over his daughter, that you are interfering in a family matter that is none of your business. And you believed him. It doesn't matter if we believe him or not, said Mr. Smith. What matters is that he's spreading this version around town, and as a lawyer, he knows exactly how to make it cause maximum damage. Mark leaned forward on the table. Ethan, you need to step away from this situation for the good of the company. Step away how? Hand the child over to whoever has legal rights to her. Go back to your normal life. Stop getting involved in family dramas that aren't yours. The suggestion hit Ethan like a slap in the face. Lily is not a family drama. She's a 4-year-old child who needs stability. A child who has a mother and a biological father, Mark insisted. You are not responsible for her. I am responsible for any child who needs help and is within my reach to help. Mr. Smith sighed. Ethan, be realistic. You can't save all the abandoned children in the world, and you can't risk everything you've built professionally because of an emotional impulse. Emotional impulse. That's what it looks like to outsiders. A lonely man who latches onto the first child that crosses his path. The words hurt more than Ethan wanted to admit. Was that really it? Was his involvement with Lily really about helping her, or about filling an emotional void in his own life? Are you giving me an ultimatum? He asked directly. Mark and Mr. Smith looked at each other. We are suggesting you consider your priorities, Mark said carefully. My priorities are very clear. Then maybe it's time to reconsider your active participation in the company, said Mr. Smith coldly. The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan looked at the men around the table, partners he had worked with for years, people he considered, if not friends, at least trusted allies. Now they were pressuring him to abandon a child to protect business interests. I'll think about what you've said, he said finally, standing up to leave. Ethan, Mark called as he reached the door, don't take too long to decide. Ryan is threatening to escalate this situation, and we can't allow it to affect all our employees and their families. On the way home, Ethan stopped at a park and sat in his car for over an hour, trying to process everything. His professional life, carefully built over decades, was being threatened. His partners, people he trusted, were willing to sacrifice a vulnerable child to protect profits. When he got home, he found Marina and Lily in the kitchen baking a cake together. The simple domestic scene contrasted sharply with the tense conversation he had just had. "Uncle Ethan!" Lily shouted, running to hug him with hands dirty with flour. "We're making a chocolate cake for you." "How delicious," he said, picking her up and trying to hide his concern. Marina immediately noticed that something was wrong. Did something happen? "I'll talk to you later," he said in a low voice. During dinner, Lily chatted about her day, telling them about the books Marina had read to her and the drawings they had made together. It was obvious that mother and daughter were reconnecting quickly, creating new bonds to replace the lost years. "Mum," Lily said suddenly, "are you going to stay here forever now?" Marina looked at Ethan before answering. "I'll stay as long as you want me to stay. I want you to stay forever. And I want Uncle Ethan to stay too. And Maria, and when Clara gets better, she can live here too. We'll be a big family. The simplicity with which Lily rearranged the world around her to include everyone she loved deeply touched Ethan. For her, family wasn't about blood or legalities. It was about love and mutual care. After Lily was asleep, Ethan told Marina about the meeting with his partners. She listened in growing silence, her hands trembling slightly. "It's my fault," she said when he finished. "I brought Ryan into your lives, and now he's causing problems for you too." "Marina, it's not your fault." "Of course it is. If I hadn't run away 4 years ago, if I had faced the situation from the beginning, there's no point in thinking about what could have been different. We have to deal with the current reality. Maybe your partners are right. Maybe it's better if I take Lily and leave. We can start over somewhere else, away from Ryan, away from all this confusion." Marina's suggestion sparked a panic in Ethan that he hadn't expected. The possibility of losing Lily, and now Marina too, hit him like a thunderbolt. "No," he said firmly. "Lily is stable here. She has school, friends, a routine. We can't keep uprooting her from safe places every time a problem arises. But what about your company, your life? I can't let you sacrifice everything for us. Maybe it's time to reconsider what really matters in life." That night, Ethan stayed up very late, thinking about the choices he would have to make, his business career versus Lily's well-being, his financial stability versus his moral responsibility, his carefully planned life versus the makeshift family that had formed around him. The next morning, he received a call that would make the decision even more difficult. It was Mr. Austin, his lawyer, with alarming news. "Ethan, Ryan filed a lawsuit yesterday. He's demanding a compulsory paternity test and temporary custody of Lily." "On what grounds?" "He alleges that Marina is unstable for having abandoned the child, that you have no legal authority over the child, and that he is being prevented from exercising his paternal rights. And does he have a chance of winning?" "He does, especially if he can prove he's offering a more stable environment than the current one." "What kind of environment?" "A traditional family, married father and mother, siblings, proven economic stability." Ethan felt the world collapsing once more. "And what can we do?" "We fight. But it's going to be a long and expensive battle, and I can't guarantee the outcome." When he hung up the phone, Ethan knew he would have to make the hardest decision of his life, and whatever choice he made, someone he loved would be deeply hurt. The court summons arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a process server who seemed embarrassed by the situation. Marina signed for it with trembling hands, while Lily played in the yard, oblivious to the legal storm gathering around her. "What does it say exactly?" asked Ethan, reading over Marina's shoulder. "Ryan is demanding a compulsory paternity test in 15 days, and if confirmed as the father, he wants immediate shared custody," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "He's also alleging that I'm a negligent mother and that you are illegally interfering in a family matter." Maria, who had arrived for work and witnessed the delivery of the summons, approached worriedly. "Mr. Hayes, does this mean they can take Lily away from us?" "They can try," he answered, but his voice didn't sound as confident as he would have liked. That same day, the situation worsened when Clara, Maria's daughter, had a crisis during physical therapy and had to be hospitalized urgently. Maria was torn between staying with her sick daughter at the hospital and continuing to help Ethan and Marina with Lily during one of the worst phases of the legal battle. "Go take care of Clara," Ethan said firmly when Maria hesitated. "Lily will understand. But sir, with everything that's happening, Clara needs you now. We'll manage." With Maria at the hospital and the legal pressure mounting, the house that was once a refuge became a tense environment. Marina could barely eat, spent sleepless nights studying family law on the internet, and had anxiety attacks whenever the phone rang. Lily, even though she was very young, sensed that something was deeply wrong. Her drawings returned to having dark colors, and she began to ask questions that broke the adults' hearts. "Mum, is the man who was crying when he saw me going to take me away from you?" she asked one afternoon, while Marina tried to focus on legal documents. "I don't know, my little one," Marina answered honestly, unable to lie to her daughter. "But I don't want to go. I like it here. I like you, Uncle Ethan, Maria, and Clara. I know, my love. I don't want you to go either. Then why can he take me?" The simple question revealed the cruel irony of the situation. A child who had finally found stability and love could be torn from that environment to satisfy the legal rights of a father who had abandoned her for 4 years. The pressure increased even more when Ethan received a formal ultimatum from his partners. Either he stepped away completely from the situation with Lily, or he would be forced to sell his share of the company. "They can't do that," said Mr. Austin during an urgent consultation. "They can," Ethan replied. "I have a partnership agreement that allows for the forced buyout of a share in cases that harm the company's image, and you're willing to lose everything you've built. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect Lily." "Ethan, be realistic. If you lose your financial stability, it will hurt your chances in the custody battle. Ryan is using exactly that as an argument, that he can offer more economic stability." The irony of the situation was not lost on Ethan. To have enough money to fight for custody of Lily, he needed to keep his company. To keep his company, he needed to distance himself from Lily. It was a vicious circle with no apparent way out. That night, an unexpected conversation changed everything. Lily had woken up from a nightmare and went to find Marina in her room. She found her mother crying while reading legal documents by the lamplight. "Mom, why are you sad?" asked Lily, climbing onto the bed. "Because sometimes adults have problems that are hard to solve." "Is it because of me?" Marina stopped crying and looked at her daughter. "Why do you think that?" "Because ever since I showed up, everyone gets worried. Uncle Ethan gets nervous. You cry. Maria runs around solving things. Maybe I bring problems to people." Marina's heart broke as she realized that a 4-year-old child had developed a guilt complex for situations completely out of her control. "Lily, look at me," she said, holding her daughter's little face. "You don't bring problems. You bring joy, love, and light to people's lives. The problems we're facing are because of adults who make wrong choices, not because of you. But if you weren't here, our lives would be much emptier and sadder." At that moment, Ethan appeared at the bedroom door. He had overheard the conversation and decided to join them. "Lily," he said, sitting on the bed, "remember when you found me that first afternoon?" "I remember. You were sad and angry." "That's right. And do you remember how I changed after you arrived?" Lily thought for a moment. "You started to smile more and play with me and make funny voices when you read stories." "Exactly. You taught me how to be happy again. You're not a problem. You're a gift." Marina watched the interaction between Ethan and Lily, realizing how they had developed a genuine paternal bond that went far beyond any biological connection. "Uncle Ethan," Lily said suddenly, "if the man who cried takes me away, will you forget me?" "Never," he answered without hesitation. "No matter what happens, you will always be my special girl. And what if I grow up and become different? I'll love you just the same. And what if I'm away for a long time? I'll wait for you as long as it takes." Lily snuggled between Marina and Ethan, and the three of them stayed like that for a long time, savoring a moment of peace amidst the approaching storm. The next day, a call from Mr. Austin brought unexpected news. "Ethan, something interesting has happened. Ryan's wife found out about the lawsuit." "How?" "Apparently, he made the mistake of leaving legal documents at home. His wife, who is a doctor, is no fool. She did the math and realized that if Ryan has a 4-year-old daughter, it means he cheated on her 5 years ago. And what does that mean for us? It means that now Ryan has much bigger problems than a simple custody issue. His wife is threatening divorce and says she will fight to ensure he doesn't even get custody of the children they have together. Does that change anything in our situation? It changes everything. A man facing a contentious divorce and possibly losing custody of his own children is in no position to argue that he can offer a stable environment for an additional child. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. But he knew that Ryan was an experienced lawyer and that desperate men could take unpredictable actions. Confirmation of his fears came that same afternoon when Ryan appeared at Lily's school trying to pick her up without authorization. He only failed because the principal, previously alerted to the situation, demanded legal documentation that he did not have. "He's losing his mind," said Marina when Ethan rushed to the school. Ryan was always controlling, but this is desperation. "Let's go home and lock all the doors," Ethan decided. "And I'm calling the police to report the attempted kidnapping." But when they got home, they found a surprise that would change everything once again. Maria was in the kitchen with Clara, who had been discharged from the hospital, and both were chatting animatedly with an elderly woman Ethan didn't recognize. "Mr. Hayes," said Maria, standing up quickly, "this is Mrs. Carroll, Lily's aunt. She was discharged from the hospital today and came looking for us." Mrs. Carroll approached with difficulty, still weak, but visibly better than when she was hospitalized. "Sir," she said with a trembling voice, "I came to tell a truth I've kept for a long time. A truth about Lily's father that could change everything." The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Mrs. Carroll leaned heavily on the chair, clearly struggling to gather the courage to reveal the secret she had carried for years. Marina held Lily in her lap, while Ethan stood, tense with anticipation. "Mrs. Carroll," he said gently, "what is this truth?" The old woman took a deep breath, her trembling hands adjusting the shawl on her shoulders. "Sir, Marina never lied about her involvement with Ryan, but she omitted something important, because I asked her not to tell." "What did you ask her not to tell?" asked Marina, clearly surprised. "Ryan is not the only man who could be Lily's father," said Mrs. Carroll, avoiding Marina's gaze. "There was another man in her life at that time." Marina turned pale. "Auntie, what are you talking about?" "Marina, have you forgotten the young doctor who took care of you when you had pneumonia?" "Dr. Gabriel Foster." The name hit Marina like a thunderbolt. Her hands trembled, and she almost let Lily slip from her lap. "Gabriel. I had completely forgotten about him." "Who is Gabriel?" asked Ethan. Mrs. Carroll answered before Marina could speak. "Gabriel was a resident doctor at the hospital where Marina was admitted with pneumonia 2 months before she found out she was pregnant. He fell in love with her during her treatment. Auntie, why did you never remind me of this before? Because Gabriel was married too, Marina, and because you were so focused on the guilt over Ryan that you didn't even consider other possibilities." Ethan sat down slowly, processing the implications. If Gabriel could also be the father, then Ryan has no automatic right over Lily, completed Marina, relief evident in her voice. "But there's something more," Mrs. Carroll continued hesitantly. Gabriel divorced his wife a few months after you disappeared. He looked for you for almost a year, Marina. He was completely in love with you. What happened to him? He moved to a small town in California, Ojai, opened a small clinic, never married again. Maria, who had remained quiet until then, spoke up. "But does that mean Lily could have 2 different men fighting for her paternity? Or it could mean we have a way to contest Ryan's claims," said Ethan, seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Marina put Lily down and walked to the window, trying to process this new information. Gabriel was different from Ryan, kind, patient, genuinely concerned about me as a person, not just physically interested. "Did you like him?" asked Ethan. I liked him a lot, but he was married, I was married, and at the time I thought it would be best to cut off all contact before things got more complicated. And now I don't know what to think. If Gabriel knew about Lily... Mrs. Carroll interrupted. Gabriel would know how to be a real father, Marina. Not a father of convenience or a father by legal obligation. He genuinely wanted to build a life with you. Lily, who had been playing with Clara in the corner of the kitchen, suddenly approached Mrs. Carroll. Grandma Carroll, are you talking about another possible daddy for me? The child's direct question made everyone uncomfortable. How could they explain to a 4-year-old girl that she might have 2 different men fighting for her paternity without traumatizing her even more? We are talking about people who might be part of your family, little one, Mrs. Carroll answered diplomatically. But I already have a family. I have Mom, Uncle Ethan, Maria, Clara, and you. Why do I need more people? The simplicity of Lily's logic was both touching and revealing. For her, family wasn't about biology, but about affection and care. That night, after the children were asleep, the adults gathered in the living room to discuss their options. Mr. Austin had been called and was analyzing the legal implications of the new information. If we can locate Gabriel, and he agrees to a paternity test, we create a situation of contested paternity, the lawyer explained. This automatically suspends any custody action until the issue of paternity is definitively resolved. And how long would that take? Asked Marina. Months, maybe more than a year, especially if Gabriel also claims paternal rights. But that just postpones the problem, Ethan observed. In the end, someone will be declared the biological father and can fight for custody. True, but it gives us time to better establish Lily's stability in her current environment and document that sudden changes would be harmful to her. Mrs. Carroll, who had been quiet during the legal discussion, finally spoke. There's one thing you're not considering. What if neither of them is the biological father? Everyone turned to her, surprised. What do you mean? Asked Marina. Marina, you had severe pneumonia. You were hospitalized for 2 weeks, taking strong medication. When you came home, you were very weak and emotional. Do you remember everything that happened during that period? Marina frowned, concentrating. No, I don't remember many things from those weeks. The medication made me confused and sleepy. And do you remember exactly when you were intimate with Edward again after your illness? Marina's expression changed. Auntie, are you suggesting that? I'm suggesting that maybe you got the dates wrong. Maybe Edward is Lily's biological father, and your guilt about Ryan and Gabriel is based on a mental confusion caused by the medication. The silence that followed was profound. The possibility that all the anguish of the past few years was based on a mistaken perception was both a relief and devastating. How can we find out? Asked Ethan. Posthumous DNA test, replied Mr. Austin. If there is still genetic material from Edward available. There is, Marina said softly. Edward donated blood a few weeks before the accident. The blood bank keeps samples archived for years for tracking purposes. Then it's possible to do the test, the lawyer confirmed. But what if the result confirms that Edward is the father? Asked Marina. Will Ryan drop his claims? He'll have to, said Mr. Austin. He has no legal basis to contest proven paternity. And Gabriel doesn't even know Lily exists. If he finds out she's not his daughter, he probably won't get involved in the situation. Ethan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where it had all started months ago. Marina, do you want to do this test? I'm afraid of the result. What if it confirms Edward was the father? I'll have to live with the guilt of having doubted him unjustly. And what if it confirms he wasn't? I'll have to face Ryan or Gabriel for the rest of my life. Marina, Mrs. Carroll said gently, the truth can hurt, but a lie hurts more and for longer. Lily deserves to know who her real father is. That night, Marina made the decision that would definitively change the course of their lives. She would do the posthumous paternity test with Edward. But what none of them imagined was that Ryan had found out about Gabriel and was already taking steps to locate him. The battle for Lily's paternity was about to become much more complicated. The next morning, when Ethan left for work, he found Ryan waiting in the company parking lot. "We need to talk," Ryan said, his expression more determined than ever. "I've discovered some interesting things about your precious Marina, and about you too." Ethan felt a chill down his spine. What kind of things? The kind of things that can completely destroy your chances of keeping Lily. Ethan eyed Ryan with suspicion, but decided to hear him out. The two men went to a nearby coffee shop, away from prying ears. "What did you discover?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Ryan smiled menacingly. "I discovered you're not the altruistic man you pretend to be. I hired an investigator to research your past, Ethan Hayes. My past is no secret." "Oh, really? So Marina knows you lost your own family in an accident 8 years ago, knows that your wife and son died while you were on a business trip, and that you blame yourself to this day for prioritizing work over family." Ethan felt his blood run cold. "That has nothing to do with Lily. It has everything to do with it. You're not protecting a child. You're trying to replace the son you lost. You're using Lily to fill an emotional void, and that makes her vulnerable to your psychological instability. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know that Marina doesn't know the full truth about your connection to her family. Does she know you knew Edward, but does she know you were brothers?" The revelation hit Ethan like a punch. How had Ryan discovered this? "That's right," Ryan continued. "Lily is your biological niece, and you hid that from Marina. You let her feel guilty for cheating on Edward, when Edward was your brother. You let her believe she was taking advantage of a stranger's kindness, when in fact you had a direct interest in the child. It's not like that." "It's not? Then how is it? Are you going to say it was a coincidence to find out your former sister-in-law's daughter was being neglected right in front of you? Or are you going to admit you always knew who she was?" Ethan clenched his fists. "I only found out who she was after you had already become emotionally involved, after you had already created a fantasy about being a father again, after you had already manipulated Marina into depending on you." "Enough!" Ethan exploded. "You know nothing about what happened. You know nothing about how I found Lily, how I took care of her, how you took advantage of a vulnerable child to satisfy your own emotional needs," Ryan interrupted. "Exactly what I'm going to argue in court." Ryan stood up from the table. "I have evidence, Ethan. Documents proving your family relationship with Edward, psychological reports from the period after your family loss. And most importantly, I have Gabriel." "What do you mean?" "I located Gabriel Foster. We had a long talk yesterday. He's very interested in meeting the daughter that might be his. And unlike you, he has no hidden agendas or unresolved trauma." Ethan felt his world collapse. "You told Gabriel about Lily?" "I did. And he's coming to Charlotte today. He wants a paternity test and, if confirmed as the father, he wants full custody. You can't do this to Lily. She finally found stability. The stability she found is based on a lie, a web of emotional manipulation orchestrated by you. Lily deserves a real family, not troubled adults using her to solve their own traumas." Ryan left the coffee shop, leaving Ethan devastated. Everything he had built, the whole family he had formed, was about to fall apart because of secrets and lies that had accumulated over the months. When he got home, he found Marina playing with Lily in the garden. The scene that once brought him peace now filled him with anguish, knowing he would have to destroy it by telling the truth. "Marina," he said when he managed to call her for a private conversation, "I need to tell you something about my relationship with Edward." "What about Edward?" Ethan took a deep breath. Edward was my brother. The silence that followed was deafening. Marina looked at him as if trying to process words in a foreign language. What do you mean, your brother? Edward Hayes was my younger brother. Lily is my biological niece. Marina stood up abruptly, running her hands through her hair. You knew? From the beginning, you knew who she was. Not from the beginning. I found out a few weeks after. And you didn't tell me. You let me live with guilt, let me think I was abusing your kindness, that I was being supported by a generous stranger. Marina, I was going to tell you, but the situation got complicated. Complicated or convenient? You had months to tell me the truth. I was afraid you'd think I was only helping out of family obligation, not because I genuinely cared about you. And was it? Was it just family obligation? Ethan hesitated for a fraction of a second, and that hesitation was enough for Marina to understand everything. My God, she whispered, you didn't save us. We saved you. You were using Lily to replace the son you lost, and using me to replace the family you lost. Marina, it's not like that. It's exactly like that. You created a perfect family fantasy using an orphan and a desperate mother. You turned us into characters in your personal emotional therapy. At that moment, Lily appeared in the room, clearly frightened by the adults' raised voices. Mom, why are you fighting? She asked in her small voice. Marina knelt to her daughter's level, trying to control her tears. My little one, sometimes adults discover things that make them very sad. Did you discover bad things about me? No, my love. We discovered things about ourselves. It was at that moment the doorbell rang. Marina went to answer it and found a tall man with brown hair and kind eyes at the door. Even after almost 5 years, she recognized Gabriel immediately. Marina, he said softly, I know this is a surprise, but I need to talk to you about a child who might be my daughter. Lily, curious, approached the door. Gabriel saw her and his face transformed completely. She has my eyes, he murmured, moved. Who are you? Lily asked innocently. I'm Gabriel. I'm a doctor and I might be your daddy. Over the next 2 hours, truths were revealed, tears were shed, and the fragile family structure they had built was completely redesigned. Gabriel told of how he had fallen in love with Marina during her treatment, how he had divorced in the hope of finding her again, how he had spent years wondering, what if? Marina told of the confusion of those sick days, of how she had forgotten Gabriel amidst the trauma of losing Edward and the guilt over Ryan. Ethan admitted his own mixed motives, the genuine desire to help mixed with the desperate need to fill an emotional void. And Lily, at the center of it all, listened with the seriousness of a child who had learned too early that adult life was complicated and painful. By the time night fell, a decision had been made. They would do all the paternity tests, Edward, Ryan, and Gabriel, to finally establish the biological truth. But more importantly, they established a new kind of family. A family based on honesty, where secrets would no longer be allowed, where everyone's emotional needs would be recognized and respected. Gabriel would stay in town while the tests were being done. If confirmed as the father, he would build a gradual relationship with Lily, respecting the bonds she had already formed. Marina and Ethan would work to rebuild their lost trust, acknowledging that they had both used each other to heal old wounds. And Lily, wise beyond her 4 years, made the observation that would define their future. It doesn't matter who my blood daddy is. What matters is who will love me and take care of me every day. 3 weeks later, the results came in. Gabriel was Lily's biological father. Ryan withdrew completely from the dispute, focusing on saving his own marriage. Edward was posthumously exonerated from the confusion that had tormented Marina for years. But the family that formed was not the one anyone expected. Gabriel and Marina reconnected romantically. Ethan became the loving uncle he should have always been. And Lily gained not just a father, but a support network that would protect her forever. Maria continued to be everyone's emotional anchor, and Clara recovered completely, becoming the big sister Lily had always wanted. In the yellow house that Ethan had bought for them, a new family settled, not perfect, not traditional, but built on solid foundations of honest love, truth, and second chances. And Lily, who had begun her journey as a hungry and abandoned girl, ended up as a child loved by more people than she could count, each one contributing something special to her upbringing, each one teaching her that family is not about perfection, but about the mutual commitment to care for one another, no matter what happens. The suffering had ended. The overcoming had finally arrived. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.